as women in our age range, which is about 45 and up, we are very untapped in terms of knowledge, experience, capacity to get things done, capacity to bind, to get something done and to help each other. And I find that extraordinary.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. I'm thrilled to have Isabelle Fish on the show today. Born and raised in France, Isabelle Fish is a Canadian entrepreneur with a long list of achievements. From a background in law, raising a family, opening up new markets for designers and makers, owning and running an exclusive contemporary jewelry gallery in Toronto, and most recently launching her business, Rue Pigalle. Welcome, Isabelle. Such a pleasure to have you here. I hope you're doing well today.
Thank you very much. I am. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lovely day today. So as I mentioned in the opening, this platform is really about inspiring women, to take that next step in life and doing things that they've always kind of had inside of them and taking the next step. So to that end, I know that you have a great story of transformation and, moving from lawyer to opening up your own boutique in Toronto. Can you tell us a little bit about your story? And, was there any really defining moments in your life that, when you realized you really had to make a change, and that, how did you make that leap, from going to a lawyer to where you are right now?
Sure. I would say that for me, it was a little bit life pushing me in that direction. Mm-hmm. When we arrived in Canada almost 20 years ago, we arrived in Calgary, and I was actually not able to practice law. The Law Society of Alberta at the time did not recognize any of my international degrees or my international experience. I had been practicing for about 15 years then. I had practiced in 5 countries, and for, corporatism reasons, I would say, they did not recognize my degree. So I took that opportunity to, I always say, get to know my children. We have 2 children, three children at the time too. And because the law practice had been very busy, I didn't really had a chance to know them. So I took, time off and was at home and met an amazing woman in Calgary who was opening a little boutique of French accessories and a little bit of decor and vintage. And I helped her. I was the Saturday girl, if you want. And suddenly that world of retail and art and makers opened itself to me. It was a true revelation. Fast forward a couple of years, we moved from Calgary to Toronto. And I knew I wanted to open my own gallery. My husband said, let's just wait until we settle in Toronto. We meet people, we understand. Are we going to stay here? We had been, moving every 3 years for the past 15 years, for different job assignments. So for us, it was quite new to make a decision to settle somewhere for good.
Yes.
So before investing in a new business, he said, well, let's make sure that this is the right place.
The right place, yeah.
So what I did is I worked for a law firm as director of administration, a world I knew, but on the business side. And as much as I enjoyed it, after 2 years, I was just done. It it just wasn't for me. And I so wanted to open my business. I can't quite explain it. There was that absolute burning desire to create something of my own, something that was mine. So I just took the leap and opened the gallery.
That's amazing. When you were you're telling the story about when you met this woman in Calgary, and I always find it interesting when, life kind of things happen, and either you can look at it as an opportunity, or you can look at it as, oh my goodness, they didn't renew I couldn't get my certification to practice law. So you could have gone the other way, but instead you look at it as an opportunity to go into the arts. So that's something that's quite unique. A lot of people, if they're faced with obstacles, they don't know how to get over those obstacles, or they don't know how to make the leap, or how to overcome them. So I'm sure it was quite very different from you going from the legal world to the world of art and craft. So what are some of those obstacles that, you faced in the beginning? And, we all have external obstacles as well as internal limiting beliefs that stop us in our tracks, right? Can you maybe describe some of those obstacles that you had, and how did you get over them?
Sure. I think that, before we start with the obstacles, I think that I would like to say that I had an amazing support element in my husband, who was incredibly supportive of me doing whatever I wanted to do. So I think when you start from a place where you have someone or a system that gives you the confidence to change, and who gives you the strength to face the obstacle, and the support to face the obstacle, that is something extraordinarily important. And
absolutely,
not everybody has that. So I think it's really important for me to acknowledge that. The main obstacle I had was a cultural obstacle. Come from a family of doctors and professors and academics. And I was raised always with the idea of entrepreneurship is a respectful place in society, but it's certainly not like being a doctor, lawyer, professor. There was a very subtle but unmissable distinction that was made. And I remember when I was a kid, I was a teenager. My mother had a friend who had the most gorgeous boutique of home decor. And my dream was to work there and one day own that. I know that now. At the time, I couldn't quite articulate it. But I never dared saying it, because I knew that my parents would look down on me and say, "What? You want to own a store?" So my first, my first obstacle was to quieten those voices and say, actually, being an entrepreneur is amazing. And being one now, and having faced the challenges of being an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs are my heroes. Anybody who feeds his or her family from, their work every day is incredibly brave and courageous and innovative and should be celebrated. So, and again, my husband helped me get over that obstacle by saying, "Excuse me, but you are employing people. You are, you are quote unquote feeding families. That there is nothing to scoff about, and you should take great pride in that." So that was really, for me, the main obstacle. The second obstacle was to really believe in my business and believe in myself that I would make it. And, I think that obstacle, it takes a while took me a while to get over it, until the business was self-sufficient. And, I saw that, yes, it was sustainable business.
Yes. You said so many important things there. The first one being that it's so important to have a support system and people to encourage you, because if you don't, then it's so difficult to find the courage in yourself to go ahead and do it. And you were fortunate to have that. And I'm fortunate to have that as well in my journey. So I completely agree with you. And the other thing that you said about the obstacle of your, I guess, traditional upbringing, which is also similar to mine. And being Indian, for example, we were always taught that, you should be a lawyer, a doctor, or accountant, those traditional fields. And it sounds like you had a similar upbringing. And I love the fact that you overcame that, and that you even though you didn't realize as a child that it wasn't so obvious as a child that, oh my God, that's eventually what you were going to do. You ended up doing exactly that. So, and that, that again talks to your courage. And you mentioned that believing in yourself. So what are some steps for people to actually do that? Because it's difficult, right? Sometimes to get over that, like, oh, I'm not good enough, or, I don't know, I've always done this, but now I'm going to be doing this. And how do you have that ability to believe in yourself? It may be a difficult question, but it's something that I've always thought about,
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that it's an important question, whether you are an entrepreneur or any other activity you choose to pursue. Even as a mother, believe in yourself,
Yes,
it's to learn to, I think, follow and trust your instinct for a start. It's also realizing what the real risk is, and it's having someone who will reflect to you the so what. Okay, you're going to, maybe fail, but so what? What are the exact real risks? Because often we create, a mountain out of nothing.
Yes.
So it's very important to have a sounding board. It's very important to have a support system. And I would say that if you don't have that at home, as you and I do in our partners, then find someone outside who can help you. Look for a mentor, look for a group, look for a network of women or men, mixed, whatever works for you. And trust, it's very important to find someone you trust, because then what they tell you, you know that it's the truth, and you know that they will tell you when it's a good idea, but also when it's a bad idea.
Exactly.
So I think that's how you build this belief in yourself.
Yes.
And then experience. I think that make your mistakes at someone else's business and learn from someone with experience.
Yes.
But then take the risk and try to find the courage to make your own mistakes, because there's nothing other than making your own mistakes to gain confidence.
Yes. And just do it, right?
That's right. Just do it.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, I think resilience is really the main quality. You need to be able to get back up every single time, because you're going to be stumbling and falling and crashing. And if you don't get back on your feet, or get back on that horse, you're just not entrepreneur material, I think. It's just not for you.
You don't have the support structure that perhaps you had in corporate world or in a previous work. It's all you, right? It's everything. You're the one who built
That's
it,
right.
and you're the one you have to answer to as well. So that's resilience is extremely important. I agree with you. So,
yes.
So just to ask you, was there ever a moment that you maybe just wanted to give up, or that, it was like, oh, how do I move on? Or there's, we're talking about resilience, but was there ever a time where it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing?
I think there was in my entrepreneur journey after 6 years of having the gallery, where I was a little bit of trailblazer, and I'd say that with a lot of humility, in the sense that I was bringing products that were extremely different from anything else you could find. and I was bringing jewelers and makers and artisans that nobody else had. So I really had to create the market. And that is exhausting. And retail is exhausting. And I have to say that I started this fairly late in my life. You just don't have the physical energy that you have when you are 25 or 30.
Yes.
So after 6 years, I was exhausted, and I thought there was time to renew my lease. And I just thought, I don't think I can carry on doing that. And do I really want to carry on doing that for, I had to renew a lease for 5 years, which was huge. So I didn't renew the lease. And for about a year after that, I wasn't sure. I mean, clients were calling, and I just didn't know how to move the business forward. And then one day I just invited 12 women for dinner. And then suddenly the answer was right in front of me.
Interesting.
Yes.
So interesting. So what was it about the dinner that, like, what happened there that the answer came to you? What was it, the connection with the women, or?
It was the connection with the women, but with the women among themselves. And I felt that great energy of all these women, and the desire for more connection, for learning, for discovering the makers and learning new things through the craft and the makers. And, it was almost an excuse to learn, to meet new people, and then to travel. That's really how I evolved the gallery into a salon and a travel group, and now a club.
Tell us about the club.
So the club is for women who want to be patrons of crafts.
Yes.
The reason why it's for women only is simplicity, I would say. I think that it's very difficult to create a space where you can satisfy everybody's approach towards craft. So I decided to have the women stream towards craft. And I think that as women in our age range, which is about 45 and up, we are very untapped in terms of knowledge, experience, capacity to get things done, capacity to bind, to get something done, and to help each other. And I find that extraordinary.
So you're saying that we have more potential than we actually realize. Is that what you mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I am convinced of that. I'm convinced of that because...
So am I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our work is done with our children, and our partners need us, but possibly not as much. Our careers, wherever we are on the spectrum, are, mostly behind us. But we still have, we can still think and do things and learn new things and do more things. And all that knowledge and energy is just not utilized.
And that's exactly, you hit it right on the nose, really, Isabelle, is that this is exactly why I am so passionate about this, because as women in midlife, we don't give ourselves enough credit for all the things we've done and all the things we possess and all the talents that we have and how we can bring them out into the world. And you said it so well. I want to go back to those dinners you had, because I think what we can learn from that is that you saw the opportunity and, you were open to the possibilities, and you saw, oh, this is something that people want. Why don't I address that need? So you really listened to your customers firstly, and then you realized that, wow, this connection that women have specifically in this age group is something that I can fill that void and I can help with. So I think that lesson of really telling women who are listening is like, you have the ability to do, really, if you really listen to and open your eyes to the possibilities around you, there's so much that you can do, right? Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
That's right. I think that's right. And I think also that we have to do it for ourselves because there are not a lot of avenues that capture that experience, that harness that experience and energy and knowledge to achieve something. So, for me, it's a two-way endeavor, connecting with the women and hopefully giving them a space where they can learn and grow and connect with others, but harnessing that energy to achieve something which is to support crafts and to support craftsmen, keep the world of crafts alive, because I really think that it's a very important element of a society that is human and connected, kind. And that's the kind of society I want to leave to my children.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think it's interesting because what you're doing is somewhat similar to what I'm doing, is that connecting women together and for, in your case, for the purpose of creativity. And I just wanted to ask you, this just popped into my head, is that, do you think we all have something creative inside of us? And do you think all of us have that creativity inside us? This is just, how do we get it out there and how do we find it?
That's an interesting question. I think that we all have creativity, but it's not necessarily in making.
Right.
You can be extremely creative in being a connector and, thinking laterally on who to connect to achieve a result that nobody had thought about. So I think creativity is the ability to think outside the box.
Yes.
And we can all do that if we apply our mind to it, I was surprised at the beginning when I moved into the art at how many women lawyers I was coming across who were jewelers, who were photographers, and I just couldn't quite understand it. And in fact, I think that it's that thinking outside the box,
yes,
that creativity. If you want to be a good lawyer, you need to obviously know the law, but be able to think outside the box to solve the problem. And that creativity, can be applied to photography, writing, fashion, or law.
Right. And I think especially for women in midlife, what would you say, if you have somebody who is looking to do the next thing, and maybe like you always wanted to go the artist route, how maybe they don't even know what it is that they're really want to do. How does somebody go about finding that? What steps do they take to discover what they really are meant to do? I know it may not be like a step-by-step thing, but maybe some pointers as to how do I discover what I was really meant to do, right?
Well, if you are someone very analytic, suppose you could start by doing a test on what it is that interests you, or there's lots of those things. But I think for me, I would go and take a walk with myself and be very honest with myself and say, okay, you want to do beading? You were a CEO. What really interests you now is beadwork. Are you prepared to go and learn and go back to school and maybe have people who would say, you're doing what? And, not be faced by the possible judgments that you are going to face, not be faced by the fact that you're going to be spending the next 5 years learning to do some beading and that your work will probably be atrocious to start with. So I think it takes courage, and first it takes great honesty with yourself. And after that, I think once you are aligned with yourself, once your head and your heart are aligned, it gives you that self-assurance, that deep knowledge that you know what it is that you want to do. After that, it's just a matter of going on the internet and researching whatever subject interests you. and there's enough resource there.
Yes.
But it's that be sure that you have your head and your heart aligned.
That is so important. Listening to yourself, being with yourself, asking those really tough questions.
That's right.
Before you take the leap, make sure that it's really something that you're willing to risk, I guess, in some ways, right? So,
and that you are doing it for the right reasons for yourself, not for any other reason.
Right.
Or doing it or not doing it. Just be sure that, it's the right reasons.
Yes, yes. So let me just go back to maybe your journey a little bit. You started out and then you made the club. Now, what would you say, you really turned the corner where you knew that, okay, I'm doing, it's like your high point, and you discovered that, yep, this is really what I'm meant to do. And I've made it now. Was there a time then you thought, oh, okay, I'm so glad I did this,
I think that it's more an incremental, it's a question of, for me, I can't say that there was a defining moment, but there was a growing sense of ease and a growing sense of being in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not someone who believes in the search of balance. I think it's a little waste of time to constantly look for balance. Just do it. And,
Don't think about it too much. Just,
well, that's it.
Yeah.
But that's my personality.
Yes.
So I think for me, it was more of an incremental thing, a maturing process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, and sometimes you try things and it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point where you do more and more of the right thing because
failure is the best education, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
So I'm sure that this last year especially has been very difficult for many. Have you had to adjust your business, and how have you had to kind of pivot? And and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening have had to do the same in their lives whether it's with their business or their career. Or so, what is there any anything that you had to do to change your business?
Well, my business disappeared in a split second when lockdown happened.
Okay, well, that's a big problem, right?
It was a problem.
Yes.
It really was a problem. And I remember realizing it, and I think my eyes must have looked like plates. All the trips canceled, all the events canceled, everything canceled. So I actually right away pivoted to the digital by organizing the weekly conversations, live Zoom conversations with artists and makers around the world. Amazing. And I've been doing one every week since March 23rd. My first one was March 23rd. And it actually has been for me an incredible business opportunity because it has enabled me to be face-to-face with clients who, some of them had been reading my newsletter, my weekly newsletter for years, but never came to the boutique because maybe they lived in New York or in Acapulco or wherever.
Yes.
And had never met me. And all of a sudden, I'm in front of them every Wednesday.
That's unbelievable.
And the way I still run, I did one yesterday, these conversations is very much to have a dialogue also with the audience. So it's not a webinar. It's a Zoom call. Everybody can see everybody. I encourage conversation and dialogue among themselves, but also with the artist. And that has, I have to say, been an incredible opportunity and the most rewarding thing I have ever done, because I receive every week emails and notes from the audience saying, these conversations have been for me, the way to connect with others. They have uplifted my mood. They have enabled me to go through these dark times. We can't thank you enough. And it's just so moving. And
I can hear it in your voice. I can hear how excited you are. It's amazing. When you said that when you first thought your business had died, or, it was the end of it, now look at where you are. And it has been a very interesting year because within all the despair, there's been so many great opportunities, like you just described, to really connect with people that you would never, ever have imagined connecting with.
That's right.
Worldwide. And the fact that you've reinvented that part of your business is incredible.
Mm-hmm. And yes, and on the strength of the conversations, then we offered the workshops.
Yes.
Which are live. So again, creating another community of 10 women who would be doing embroidery together or collage. We've got a lino printing workshop happening. And the women who take the workshop together live with the artist come from all over. And actually, my challenge is to make sure that the time zone works.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful problem to have. And then on the strength of that, I launched the club in September. Again, that community and that connection and that communication. And I'm just about to launch the virtual trips. Again, a community, 10
Amazing.
Women, 20
Fantastic.
women, actually. We're going to take 20 and we're going to be virtually traveling to various countries and do that. And all
so
that
how do you do
because
that? Sorry, so you is it like a 3-day thing, or is it you meet every day, or okay?
That's right.
Oh,
we've got one in February in partnership with the Art Fair Collect, and for 4 days, for about 3 hours a day, we're going to go to 2 galleries in London, and then we'll have probably a little cocktail session. And then the next day we're in Paris, and the day after that we're in Oslo, and then we're going to go to New York. And and it's all live.
Yeah.
So, and you will be with the same 20 women, for 4 days.
Wow.
And then we're going to Italy in March. We have a second trip planned to go to Venice, Florence, Milan in March. So
do you think this incredible? How you've kind of turned lemon into lemonade, I would say. Would you say that you would continue? Once we are actually able to physically travel, do you think you would continue even this arm of this business, like still having for people who maybe can't physically travel? Maybe you can still continue this.
Absolutely,
virtual travel.
Yes, absolutely. We'll do that, and I really want to do a mix. So when we travel live in real, we do have virtual connections with other women and bring them with us if you want for some of the events.
That's a great idea.
So have these mixed things. No, absolutely. And I can't let go of that community now. Yesterday we had the first conversation of 2021, and I had been off air for about 5 weeks, and I can't tell you first how happy I was to see them, but there was a mood of lightness and happiness. I know that it was also Joe Biden's inauguration, which did help, add.
Yes, good day to choose.
But, but the women, they found each other again on screen, and they were talking and waving at each other, and
so nice.
And I encourage them to do that, and that community.
And just think, you created that. So
I guess you're right.
You should be. I was going to ask you, what are you most proud of? But I would hazard to guess that might be it. Is it? Or
yes, that community of women and that connection and that sense of being there for each other and bringing that happiness and that joie de vivre. Once a week, at least.
Well, from just listening to you and your passion for what you do, I just wish that for everybody. Like I really do, because when you find something that you're passionate about, it just doesn't seem like work. It just seems like something that you're meant to do. And the tips that you've given us today to really find that and get over the obstacles that maybe are facing you, and having the courage to do it, as well as finding support if you don't have it already. Those are so great lessons, and that we can all learn from. So wonderful. Do you have any other thoughts or anything you'd like to?
Well, I think what's important also is that for those of us who are lucky enough to have that confidence and that courage, is that we are attuned to the fact that there might be people around us who don't have that and who might not be able to ask for it. So we must be open to providing our support. And it's a way of giving back, if you want, which is a very important concept for me too. And being there,
yes.
And sharing our courage, sharing our self-confidence, our energy, our experience with others. That's really, really important to do that.
And that's exactly what you're doing today. Right?
Well, I guess so.
That's exactly what this is about.
I'm delighted then.
Yes. And that's such an important thing, and I think people realize that more and more, especially in this situation we're all facing with COVID, is how can we not only help ourselves, but how can we help others? And that's such a great point. So thank you so much. Let me tell our listeners, how they can find you. And you mentioned the travel that you're going to be doing, but maybe you could give us a little insight into that. And we'll have your information in our show notes so people can look out for you. But maybe you can tell us how we can find you.
Of course. Thank you very much for that. So my company is called Rue Pigalle, like the Rue Pigalle in Paris. And there's a website, ruepigalle.ca, and I'm always available by email. It's isabelle@ruepigalle.ca. And the trips we are doing virtually are also on the website. Everybody is welcome. Just send me an email and we'll discuss that.
Yeah, and I love traveling, so I miss it so much. So even the thought of virtual traveling would be amazing. So I might check that out myself.
With pleasure.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Isabelle. It was a pleasure to talk to you and hear your insights. And I hope everybody enjoyed that. And please reach out to Isabelle if you have any questions, or if you want to see what great things she's doing with her community of women. It would be wonderful for you to connect with her. So thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was such an awesome interview with Isabelle. And, we can learn so much from her evolution from lawyer to businesswoman to patron of craft and design and builder of communities. Here are the main takeaways from Isabelle. Number 1, if you want to change things, start from a place where you have someone or a system that gives you the confidence to change and gives you the strength to face the obstacles. Number 2, how do we learn to believe in ourselves? First, trust and follow your instincts. Second, realize what the real risk is. 3, have someone who will reflect to you the so what. And finally, find the courage to make your own mistakes to gain confidence. Number 3, take a walk with yourself and be honest with yourself. Are you prepared to do this? Number 4, be sure that you have your head and your heart aligned. Number 5, learn to accept failure. Failure is the best education. Number 6, share your courage and self-confidence with others. We must be open to providing that support. I know that you could be in a lot of places, so I thank you so much for taking your time out for your own learning and inspiration. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share this with your friends, rate and review us, and subscribe to our podcast, where we'll be interviewing so many more incredible women each week. Please don't forget to join our free community at powerpurposeplay.ca for tons of resources and updates on future events. Thanks so much, and see you next week.